he did, not me. Sorry. Not a problem. Is this one good? Can you guys give a check on this? Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Bad, bad, good, bad, good. Everything's good. That's a good question. Yeah, are they without masks during the talk? Yeah, you can take your mask off while you're. Put BJ's on him.
I should be wearing my UGA mask.
Yes, you should.
Very disappointed in myself. That's right. Go dogs.
Can we have a Sharpie and paint your wife?
For one day.
2 minutes. They'll be down here about 2 minutes. Check, check, check. Bounce check. Huh? So we'll pass it around to you. Or I'll bring it to you. Check, check.
Okay.
Right there's, oh, is it on? You didn't turn it off.
No. It's live now.
You can hear it, right?
Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everybody, and I want to welcome you to the United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia. My name is BJ Pack. I am the United States Attorney for this district, and it's my great honor and pleasure to host this roundtable on a topic so important to all of us in society. It's human trafficking, one of the most horrific crimes an individual could commit against another person. The United States Attorney's Office, my prosecutors in this office, along with our law enforcement partners, have been in this space for quite a while. And I'm happy to report that we've had successes in bringing to justice several individuals committing these type of crimes. Most recently, we prosecuted a gentleman who trafficked 5 adult women by coercion, by physically beating them, and by torturing them into sexual servitude for commercial gain. Of course, these type of crime, unfortunately, victimizes young children as well. We recently prosecuted cases where 2 brothers from Cuba have trafficked minors, Florida, Tennessee, and North Georgia, for sexual purposes. And we're happy to note that thanks to the great work of law enforcement partners and everybody at this table, that we have rescued those girls and they're on the way to mend. Unfortunately, we have plenty of these cases to do. That tells you that the problem is not going away. We need more concerted effort to do so. I'm happy to note that the President and also the Attorney General of the United States have made fighting human trafficking one of the top priorities of our country. The United States Attorney's Office is happy to participate in multiple task forces in this regard, both in the federal and state context. And I know that one of the directions that I get from the head of our agency, Attorney General Barr, is to fully prosecute these individuals to the full extent of the law, to bring justice and bring closure for the victims. But I recognize that prosecuting these individuals are only a small part in helping the victims go towards recovery. It gives me great honor today to introduce to you the Attorney General William Barr. He's a longtime public servant who has also served the Department of Justice distinctively for many, many years. He was Assistant Attorney General of the Office of Legal Counsel, then the Deputy Attorney General, and then became the 77th Attorney General of the United States under President George Herbert Walker Bush. He had a distinguished career in private practice and also served as Executive Vice President and General Counsel for Verizon Corporation, and most recently with the law firm of Kirkland & Ellis. But Call of Duty had called him back into government service, where President Trump has nominated Mr. Barr to be Attorney General, and he was confirmed and sworn in by Chief Justice John Roberts in February of 2019. Without further ado, please help me welcome Attorney General Bill Barr.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, BJ. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to meet with those in the state and local government and in the federal government, and then our private partners with you this afternoon to discuss our joint efforts to combat human trafficking. One area where I think there's been real progress in this fight is awareness, public awareness. I say that from my own personal experience because when I was coming back into government almost a couple of years ago, I would not have predicted that this was as big an issue. If you had asked me sort of what I thought about this, I would have thought that in the 30 years since I was Attorney General previously, that probably this was on the wane. And in fact, I discovered as soon as I came into the department the magnitude of this problem. It has grown exponentially and is a very grave problem. Difficult to detect sometimes, difficult to prosecute, and difficult to rescue many of the victims. But I really appreciate the President and the administration, especially Ivanka, who has been personally committed to this issue, and I've had the opportunity to work closely with her on it. We've marshaled all our resources to fight this criminal activity and to do what we can to help the survivors. This is one of the top enforcement priorities of the department. And we're on the forefront, we think, of this fight. We've structured ourselves so that every single office of our 93 U.S. Attorney's Office has a human trafficking coordinator, and then in the deputy's office there's a senior prosecutor who is the national coordinator for human trafficking, and is constantly pushing and cajoling and encouraging offices to aggressively pursue cases in this arena. And I'm very pleased to be here in Georgia because the governor and the first lady here have been second to none in the nation taking this fight on and working closely with the federal government, so I really appreciate that. Earlier, before this meeting, we had the opportunity to talk to Tim Tebow, and he made the point, that this is a problem that requires a holistic approach. And when you think about looking at it from the law enforcement standpoint, it's one of those areas where we're dealing with people who frequently don't have a family to fall back on. They don't have alternative ways of making living. They may not have had the educational opportunities in the past. There's a whole cycle of issues that they confront as individuals that would enable them to break away from this life. And whereas law enforcement is frequently the catalyst to breaking into this cycle and giving the victim an opportunity to leave it, there are a lot of practical problems that have to be confronted by all the different agencies involved, and how to really effectuate that. And so this has gotten the department into things we haven't really done that much in the past. But last month, Ivanka and I were at a ceremony at the White House where the department awarded $35 million in grants to support housing for victims of human trafficking, which is the largest ever federal investment of this kind, because housing is of critical importance to saving and helping these survivors, and from our standpoint, frequently critical if we're going to be able to obtain their help, cooperation in criminal prosecutions. Today, I'm happy to announce that the department is awarding over $100 million in grants across the country targeted at human trafficking. And these grants are going to support state, local, and tribal jurisdictions, victim service providers, task forces, and key research initiatives. And I'm very proud that these resources are going to help law enforcement officers and victim services providers hold perpetrators accountable and give the victims of these crimes a place to turn for refuge and support. Aside from financial support, the Justice Department will continue to use the full force of the law and our enforcement resources to investigate, prosecute, and punish the people behind this criminal scourge. You know, one of the great agencies in the department are the U.S. Marshals, the oldest law enforcement agency. And the U.S. Marshals are a can-do agency, and one of their authorities is to assist states when they request the help in finding missing children. And I think you all in Georgia have seen the results of that effort with Operation Not Forgotten, where the Marshals came in and rescued through that operation 26 children from trafficking, and helped to safely locate an additional 13 children. That's going on around the country. They have 6 more cities or districts they're going to be operating in with these operations between now and the end of the fiscal year. But it's just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of all the activity that's going on in the department that's directed at this. And it's only by cooperating with all our partners, our state and local partners and those in the private sector that we're going to be able to make any progress and ultimately end the victimization of these boys and girls. So I'm grateful for all your hard work and your dedicated efforts in this cause, and I look forward to hearing from all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and it's great to be back here in Georgia, and thank you for hosting us once again. And thank you, Attorney General Barr, for being here and for your passionate commitment to leveraging the full force of the Justice Department, and as you noted, going beyond what justice has traditionally been able to do by taking this holistic approach through today's huge announcement, really unprecedented in the history of federal government targeted intervention to combating human trafficking, but also in previous grants that have been given through the Department of Justice and this administration. I echo my thanks to Governor Kemp and First Lady Kemp. You both are showing tremendous leadership, and there's much we can learn from your efforts here locally, and much other governors I know across the country are learning from the great work that you're doing and the heart you have for this issue. Attorney General Carr, this is also the second time we've been together on this topic here in Atlanta, and I thank you for your role and your work. And BJ, the same goes to the great work being done. And the Attorney General just mentioned it, but Operation Not Forgotten was just remarkable. So to have that many children, 39 in total between identified and rescued, have an ability to start their life anew with the resources that we'll be able to provide them, working with state and local partners and the NGO community and the private sector is extraordinary. So we really thank you for that heroic work and for the successful collaboration happening with the U.S. Marshals and with all the entities that are involved. Tim Tebow, you and your amazing wife, Demi, have a real passion for tackling this and for being a voice for the voiceless. I believe that it's one of the reasons the president has such a heart for this issue. He vowed to fight for the forgotten men and women of this country, and there are few that are more voiceless and more forgotten and really in the shadows than those who have been victimized repeatedly and trafficked. And as the Attorney General noted earlier, this was not something 5 years, 10 years ago that people realized was happening within the borders of our own country. So it is something that we are aggressively moving to root out, and we appreciate the work that your foundation is doing here in the U.S. and abroad on this front. With over $100 million being announced today in new grants, it's the administration's largest ever investment in Department of Justice grants to combat the scourge of human trafficking, arguably the gravest of human rights violations. This will support victim services, it will strengthen human trafficking task force, such as the great ones here in Georgia, and support unprecedented victim housing assistance across the nation. One of the grant recipients that I met recently is with Atlanta-based Wellspring Living, and actually, Attorney General Carr, that's where you and I were last together. Andrea Hepwell, who later joined us at the White House to share her story. She is a survivor who graduated from this program and is now Wellspring Living's Director of Residential Services. During that visit, she said to all of us, and I quote, "I found myself in a pretty hopeless situation. You name it, I had done it. Things that I'm not proud about, but Wellspring took a chance on me. Now I have the honor of welcoming people into the program saying, I'm here to show you that there's something better, something more for you. I always tell women, welcome home." So Andrea is one of the many examples of somebody who was able to transform their life with support and starting afresh. And we're very proud that she has agreed to join President Trump and serve on the U.S. Advisory Board on Human Trafficking and has been a great asset to that board thus far. Earlier today, we went to Georgia Center for Child Advocacy, and that's another incredible organization doing great work. And really, we just did a lot of listening. What resources they need, what has been most helpful. And part of listening was also meeting with not only the care providers and the therapists and the investigators, but also survivors themselves. We met with an amazing young woman, Keisha Head, and she shared with us her really incredibly remarkable and an incredibly sad early journey of starting being trafficked at the age of 16 after having been the victim of abuse by her parents, one of which was a drug addict and a schizophrenic. So at an age when most children across the nation are learning how to drive, Keisha was enduring the unthinkable. But now she's gone through recovery. She's a volunteer at the Georgia Center for Child Advocacy. She's a mother of 3, and she is absolutely thriving. So she gives us hope for so many others who are trapped in this cycle. To protect the most vulnerable among us, this president, in addition to committing resources, has also reached across the aisle and worked very hard to sign into law 9 pieces of legislation in the last 3.5 years to combat the horrors of human trafficking. And this is really the beginning of this work. Attorney General Barr and I were talking about some upcoming legislation to advance these efforts that will be introduced in the weeks and months ahead. And we're very excited to continue to advance smart, targeted policy on this front. But as we all know, the federal government cannot do this alone, and that for this crime to no longer persist in the shadows, we need the effort and collaboration of everyone around this table, including the private sector, who can both help us identify victims and perpetrators, but also offer jobs and opportunities for those who are recovering. So we thank you all for convening today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Governor Kemp and thank him for, again, showing us some great Southern hospitality here in Georgia.
Well, thanks, Ivanka, and it's great to have you back in the state of Georgia, and we just appreciate your tireless efforts on this and appreciate you bringing your partner with us today, Attorney General Barr. Grateful to have you here as well. And as you know, our whole family, even before we got sworn in, has been focused on ending human trafficking, and it's been a battle that we've literally been fighting since day one. And like you said, we have so many partners that we're working with and that are engaged in this issue, and so many advocates that have been engaged on the streets for over a decade or decades. And we really owe them everything. We're just their voice for people like Dave and others that have been dealing with this for many years. But we're honored to do it. And we have a great team at the state, the attorney generals, really with the legislative support that we have gotten to focus on human trafficking with the unit that he has there, the HEAT unit that the GBI has done under Director Vic Reynolds, great work over there. But we're all working together on this with our partners that are in the fight every day on the streets, literally. But we have a great team. I was telling the Attorney General on the elevator ride, I guess we were going down. I really wasn't paying attention, but I was telling him what a great job our U.S. attorneys are doing here with BJ and Charlie and Bobby. I mean, great group that are helping us on all these tough issues that we have. So we really have great collaboration. We're working very hard. Marty has been focused on this, really, and I know y'all said this, but I tell people all the time, and I really believe it, she's doing as much at the state level as anybody in the country to raise awareness. There's a lot of people that are doing the work every day, but what she has done, putting the Grace Commission together, listening to the advocates, and these stories, like you said, they are heartbreaking. I mean, it is hard to listen to this. But Marty always says, we got to talk about it. You know, no matter how hard it is, we got to talk about it. We got to get it out. We got to raise awareness. And so, you know, we've passed legislation here that has been really a monumental lift, but broad, unanimous, bipartisan support in the legislature. We've got training programs for state employees, our private sector folks like Delta and UPS, and many other people are helping in that regard too. We need the public to continue to do that as we continue this work. But I just appreciate all that Marty's done. And look, we have had tremendous support from the Trump administration, from the president, from yourself. This is not the first trip you've been to Georgia talking about human trafficking. The U.S. Attorney General's office and many, many other people. And I just wanted to really thank you for your willingness to step up and put more money into this effort. I can guarantee you it will be well spent. I didn't know that until we sat down here, but I was thinking that earlier because the grant that was announced earlier to Wellspring, that facility, I remember vividly Marty telling me on a weekend she got a call and says we have, you know, another 14-year-old child that's going in to the receiving center and they're full. So if they get somebody else this weekend, they don't have anywhere to put them. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have, not only in our state, but I imagine that's probably a countrywide issue, is trying to figure out, you know, how do you get that immediate overnight help? And as we heard in our roundtable today, that can come, you know, it's not an 8 to 5 thing, right? You may get this call at 10 o'clock at night from a law enforcement person that says, hey, I have a trafficked victim. I need a place to put them, and a safe place to put them, because these individuals are very unstable. They don't trust anyone, rightly so. So I think this additional money and funding is very appreciative, I know, from our perspective, and we will certainly be supportive of that as we go into the future. But I can promise you we will stay in the fight to end modern day slavery with all of the folks at this table and those that are not, that are out there working away right now. And I'm going to throw it to Tim Tebow. I had an opportunity to visit with Tim a little bit while we were having a bite to eat before we came in, and was really learning about what their foundation's doing and how they're fighting battles not only here but all over the world. And we were discussing the border war that we have. Attorney General Carr and I made sure that he understood it was a Georgia-Florida game. I think he's got that clear now. But we're also we're also allies. We're also allies. So we're in the battle together, Florida and Georgia, because a lot of their work is originating in Jacksonville, and so we're in the war together. Fighting to end human trafficking. But I'll throw it over to Tim. It's great to have you guys, the Tebows, in Georgia today.
Thank you, Governor Kemp. I appreciate it so much. And I think it is fun to be able to have some jokes about football, but then we get together for something so much more important. And that's why I'm grateful to be here. That's why I'm grateful for all of you that are here and all of the work that you have done. I truly am so grateful because for me and my wife, this isn't an 8 to 5, a 9 to 5. This is a calling. It's a calling because we believe it's the greatest form of evil in the world today. Because there are 40 million people around the world that need us. They need us to say, no longer is it about the credit, it's about the mission. No longer is it about, well, we're not going to work from Florida to Georgia or from right to left. We're going to all rally together to be able to push back this darkness and push back this evil. And you probably hear from my tone that I'm pretty passionate about it, because eventually we have to say, not on our watch, not anymore. And so our goal in this is really 3 forms. Is proactive. We got to support the families before they get in a desperate situation where they do something that eventually they're going to regret. Number 2 is that we got to be part of the rescue. When kids are sold, girls, but sometimes boys as well, we got to be part of that rescue mission. You know, that's one of our non-negotiables, is we're on a rescue mission. You see, when you say rescue mission, it puts a timeline on it. It's not a nonprofit. It's not an organization. Oh, it's a rescue mission, because that puts a sense of urgency. And we have to live with a sense of urgency to be able to rescue as many lives as possible. That's why we're here today. It's not because we wanted to hang out, because we want to work with as many people as possible to say, no longer on our watch is this going to take place. You know what? We might not be able to end it today, but I do believe we we can make a really big dent. And then third, it's long-term relationships, because like you talked about, it does take holistic healing. It takes holistic love, and it also takes sharing with someone that they might have been a slave physically, but they've also so many times become a slave inside, because it's not just, slavery is not just on the outside, it's on the inside as well. And so it takes a long time to be able to love and holistically care for so many of these girls and so many of these survivors that have been trafficked. And so it's going to take all of us and more coming to this table to say that we have to be able to work together. Because I think one of the saddest things for me is so many times these survivors have forgotten their worth, because they have been told and they have been shown over and over again that you're only worth and there's a price. You know, the reason why we got into this was because 8 years ago, my dad was preaching in a remote country, and there were 4 girls that he was next to that were being sold. And he took out all the money out of his wallet, which was $1,250, and he bought those 4 girls. And then he called me and said, I just bought 4 girls. And not really sure what to do now. And I said, that's okay, Dad, we got your back. And so we built our first safe home, and then with the 4 girls, and supported them, and then got 4 more and 4 more, 4 more. And, you know, I'm so grateful for that day, because it opened my eyes to what is happening around the world. And I think our goal should be to open more people's eyes, because we need an army of people to say no longer is this going to happen. And that's really our goal, is to create an army of people that are committed to this fight. They're committed to this fight in a lot of different areas, but they're committed to this fight in their neighborhoods, in their schools, in their businesses. They don't have to necessarily just take a mission trip to be part of this fight. They can be part of this fight wherever they are, whatever their calling is, whatever they're doing. But this is something that every single person can make a difference in, and we can together push back this evil. But another one of our non-negotiables is that there's power when we come together. And we need more people to be able to come together on this, because when we do, we believe there's power, and we believe we can make a dent. So thank you guys so much for having us.
Thank you, Tim. I know you do great work through your foundation, and it's an important partnership in battling this crime. I get the pleasure to somehow moderate the roundtable, and I want to go back and forth between the private sector and the nonprofits and also law enforcement. And at this time, I want to recognize Chris Hacker, who is the special agent in charge of the FBI Atlanta Field Division here. He's in charge of the entire state of Georgia, who's been a terrific partner, and also the FBI helps run one of the task forces here. Chris, could you tell us about some of the work that the FBI is doing?
I'm really excited to get to follow Tim Tebow. How cool is that? That's really cool. Hey, your passion, I mean, it's contagious. So thank you for being here. And I can feel the passion amongst everybody at the table. So thank you for that. And first off, I want to say thank you for allowing me a few minutes just to highlight the great work of the men and women of FBI Atlanta. And I think when I get through my presentation, you're going to see why I'm passionate about it, and I think you all appreciate this. So our success in addressing the human trafficking threat is only possible because of our partnerships. So that is with private sector, law enforcement, and NGOs, everybody at this table. We take it very seriously. So does the FBI. There's about 1,300 cases any given day across the country addressing human trafficking. And in Georgia, we have about 100 of those. So what sets us apart from other FBI offices is that we lead the largest child exploitation and human trafficking task force in the FBI. Our match task force is what we call it, and it consists of 55 federally deputized police officers and state officers from 8 local agencies and GBI. And these task force officers work every day with the men and women in my office and across the state of Georgia to combat human trafficking. Besides the day-to-day trafficking operations conducted by the task force, MATCH also facilitates major operations targeting human trafficking, where we deploy our task forces to major events such as the Super Bowl or other large events that are going on in Metro Atlanta and around the state. They also participate in national initiatives such as Operation Independence Day and Operation May Day. We also coordinate and participate in partner agency operations. The Attorney General and several others mentioned Operation Not Forgotten. We coordinated and worked closely with the United States Marshal Service on that operation. But due to the size of this task force, this is really what's different about what we're doing here. We can expend more resources to investigate and document this trafficking that's going on throughout the state. And more often, we can do this at a higher rate than most cities, even bigger than Atlanta. One way we measure impact, and it's always about the impact to me, is how do we measure that? we're making against this threat is by capturing some numbers, and I want to share a few of those with you. What we measure here is arrest and recoveries. So since January 2018, we've conducted 44 major operations across Metro Atlanta and the state of Georgia, targeting the recovery of child and adult trafficking victims. We arrested over 300 people for human trafficking, and we've recovered 399 children who were victims of trafficking. And we've also encountered over 160 adults, and each adult was interviewed and offered services. And on several occasions, we will open cases on a criminal organization in these situations to take the case a little bit further. And I want to give you an example of one of those cases real quick. And I know our U.S. Attorney mentioned several great cases, but this one was a successful prosecution not too long ago. So the subject trafficked 2 adult females, forcing them into prostitution through beatings, use of a firearm as a threat, and coercion, including forcing a woman into an ice bath for not charging enough money. So in April 2019, he pled guilty here in the Northern District under Mr. Pack to 2 counts of sex trafficking and 1 count of witness tampering. He received 260 months, that's 22 and a half years in federal prison. So we're always looking to build new relationships and find new ways to work in this space, and I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm appreciative to be part of this panel. So I just want to say thanks to everyone that's here and all of our partners that are out there doing this work every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The leader of one of the other commissions that are based out of Georgia is our First Lady of Georgia, Marty Kemp. The First Lady Kemp and I had an early conversation about the Grace Commission she formed, and I think she quickly realized we had many things in common, one of which is she has 3 daughters, and so do I. But I know that having daughters have really hit home, and this issue has become a passion for you. Could you describe for us some of the work that the Grace Commission under your leadership is doing to bring all the stakeholders together?
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. When the way we got in, the Grace Commission was formed was when Brian was January 2nd of 2019, and we went to a press conference that represented, it had 72 school buses, which represent 3,600 kids that are taken into human trafficking a year in Georgia. And I was devastated. I mean, the girls and I and Brian, we had not heard about this. We were devastated. So we knew that that was going to be something that the Super Bowl was coming. We really wanted to put an emphasis on. So we created the Grace Commission, which is Georgians for Refuge, Action, Compassion, and Education. So we brought all the experts to the table because there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. We just wanted to bring everybody together, nonprofit, profit, law enforcement, anybody that was working on it to help have a say in what they were doing so we could all work together as a team. But we passed House Bill 823, which provides a person knowing, commercial vehicle, knowingly using a commercial motor vehicle for sexual or labor trafficking crimes will be disqualified permanently for life. House Bill 911 closes a dangerous loophole for a foster parent that is trafficking a child. Senate Bill 435 is the Survivors First Act, which actually brought survivors to the table to let them see what they needed, which would help them go forward, which was really a very, very monumental bill that was passed. The GBI heat unit, Vic Reynolds has just led the way. I call him the GOAT because he's the greatest of all time. He has really led the way and just been fighting. I'm sorry, but he is. And I'm proud to have him working with us. No. But, I mean, anybody's going to get in there and fight. I'm with them, and they're with us. The federal support has just been tremendous. I mean, I'm so proud that you've been down here twice and that we're talking about this. And like we said, we're going to talk about it. I know it's difficult to talk about, but just excited to know the work that the Tebow Foundation is doing and everybody working together. We're just going to continue to talk about it and educate, awareness, and keep fighting together. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, First Lady. Senior Advisor Trump mentioned a great operation. Unfortunately, he gave me credit, Advisor Trump, to actually the U.S. Marshal Service who rescued all those children. And at this time, I want to recognize our great partner here, U.S. Marshal for our district, Mike Yeager, to talk a little bit more details about this fantastic operation of rescuing kids.
Thank you, BJ. And thank you. I'm very honored to have an opportunity to come here and represent the U.S. Marshals Service on behalf of the men and women of the Marshal Service. I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of the job that they do each and every day. I've been in law enforcement a few years. I just started my 41st year, and I believe I'm going to make a career out of it. But I'm still very passionate about any type of crime, any time that we can shut down and defeat evil. That's what we need to do. But I just want to tell you a little bit about Operation Not Forgotten. Let me just start here, but since 2005, the United States Marshal Service has provided investigative assistance, which directly led to the recovery of more than 1,900 missing children. Of the closed missing child cases, which the Marshal Service assisted in recovery, 66% of those children were recovered within 7 days when we became active with the cases. So you could see that our guys are very passionate. You know, that's our job. We hunt fugitives, and we're trained to hunt fugitives, and so we've changed that and parlayed that into now to hunting these children. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. But Operation Not Forgotten targeted critically missing children throughout the Atlanta and Macon, Georgia area, including metro areas. I believe it was 15 counties that we actually worked in. Now this operation was set to really go earlier this year, but due to COVID, you know, we had to put it on standby, but we couldn't wait any longer. I mean, that's how passionate we wanted to get going. We didn't want it to hold back because of these kids that are out here. The initiative was the culmination of several months of planning and coordination between the Marshal Service, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the Georgia Office of the Attorney General, the Georgia Department of Family and Children Services, the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, the FBI, and Children's Health Care of Atlanta. And I can't forget our local partners, all the local agencies that gave us a lot of help. And I want to talk about in just a little bit about the guys that what I call the boots on the ground. Those are the ones that do the work. Those officers that are out here on the streets. But the primary objective of the operation was to identify and recover high-risk, endangered, missing child cases involving children who were critically missing from the state of Georgia and or had been exposed to child sex trafficking and child exploitation. Operation Not Forgotten resulted in the rescue, like General Barr said earlier, the recovery of, or the rescue of 26 children, and also the safe location of 13 additional children, and the arrest of 9 criminal associates. 15 of the recovered children are suspected of being victims of sex trafficking. Additionally, investigators cleared 26 arrest warrants and filed additional charges for alleged crimes related to sex trafficking, parental kidnapping, registered sex offender violations, drugs and weapons possessions, and custodial interference. So, I mean, they were pretty busy. I'd just like to say that the U.S. Marshal Service is fully committed to assisting federal, state, and local agencies in locating and recovering these endangered missing children, in addition to their primary fugitive apprehension missions. It's just like our director, Donald Washington, said at an earlier press conference that we were in. The message to missing children and their families across this state or across this nation is that we will never stop looking for you. I want to just give you just a couple of things. During this operation, I was briefed just about daily on it by the guys that were on the teams. And I just want to give you a couple of stories, if I could. Some significant recoveries. The Macon team located and arrested a missing juveniles, and they also, during that rescue of those juveniles, they arrested 2 murder suspects in Columbus, in the Columbus area. One of those was wanted for murder, entering an auto, weapons possession during the commission of a crime, and the second individual had warrants for murder and entering an auto. And then this story, you know, these stories will get to you. I mean, But there's a story of one female that is a suspected sex trafficking victim. She has a history of running away. In June of 2020, she went to jail after assaulting another child at her placement, but was released on her own accord and was currently on probation in the Atlanta area. She agreed to stay at her placement and to obey the rules. She was set to appear in court in August, but soon after returning, she ran from this facility with another child. And then on August 6, our Team 4 received a lead that she was staying in an address in Covington, Georgia. They went there, and after a few hours of surveillance, they did recover this young lady. And 2 individuals were found in the home, one being a convicted felon who was subsequently charged with obstruction, and a gun was seized during the recovery. More charges are to come in that case. But the one case I want to kind of leave you with, there was a young lady that they went into a house, and they there to recover this young girl, about 16 years of age. Well, while they were there, they arrested an individual that was there with her, and after she thought that they were there just to arrest the guy that had been keeping her. When she was told, no, we're here to get you, she broke down and cried because she said, I didn't think anybody cared. That's the life that she had led. She said, I didn't think anybody cared. So, I mean, those are just a few of the stories that these men and women from the Marshal Service and also all the other state agencies and the local agencies have gone through. But if I could, I just want to leave you with one. This is a quote. And this is a quote from a tremendous person, Darby Kirby. I don't know if many of you have met Darby. She is the chief of the missing child unit for the U.S. Marshal Service. But in talking to her back during the recent press conference, she says, when we track down fugitives, it's a good feeling to know that we're putting the bad guy behind bars. But that sense of accomplishment is nothing compared to finding a missing child. She said, it's hard to put into words what we feel when we rescue a missing child. But I can tell you this operation has impacted every single one of us out here, everybody that was involved in this. We are working to protect them and get them the help they need. So it was a very successful operation. I know as a result of Operation Not Forgotten, further leads were developed, and we're still following those leads. And, you know, others will still be recovered out of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshal Yeager. I think all of us know that being rescued is only a first step of a very long journey to recovery for these victims. And nonprofits and religious organizations play a very vital part. And we have Bob Rogers from Street Grace here, who has been in this space for a very, very long time, to share some few words with some of the mission of Street Grace and what's happening in this space.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I do feel like, and I think everybody knows it, but we as an NGO have the distinct privilege of being a part of a state that has decided intentionally to set personal agendas aside and focus on the mission. And that's why I think we in the not-for-profit community and the faith communities are beginning to see not just progress, but exponential progress. Our perspective on it and the way that we view the issue is a little different than some because we focus primarily on children and we focus primarily on demand reduction. So we have the benefit of a number of different things, but one of the things I want to talk about is the prevention and protection piece that we do and the partnerships that we have with local faith communities. We've got a couple of offices around the country, and we have about 480 faith partnerships with local synagogues, churches, and groups that partner with us to do two things, to educate and get the message out, and they also are strong financial supporters. So it's not just a matter of engaging with conversation, they engage with their resources as well and have helped make this better. We have the privilege of speaking to 50 to 55,000 kids between the ages of 12 and 18 every year. And we know that this is working and the feedback that we get in that's working. We also work on the policy and have had the privilege of working here in Georgia with the Kemps and with A.G. Carr to do a number of policy advancements that have taken place that engage communities and help folks feel like they can see an answer to the problem and that they have a role to play. We also look at the pursuit of the buyers of sex and the traffickers. Our mission is to eradicate or to end this. One of the things that we did, and one of the things that we know is was kind of a marker, we feel like, for the state, was the bus stunt that Mrs. Kemp referenced that we did in January of last year. That was an event that we did to raise awareness, to look at the issue differently, and to get it in front of people. And in 72 hours, it was picked up by about 480 media outlets and was in front of 164 million people around the country. But this idea of removing the cloak of anonymity that the buyers of sex and the traffickers can so often flourish under, we've created a artificially intelligent chatbot that in the last year since we launched in 2019 has been a part of about 256,000 different text exchanges with about 56,000 buyers, and about 27,000 of them were unique and distinct buyers. But more than that, connected 9,000 of them to resources for help so that they too can begin to work on some of the issues and the challenges. But I think it would be really hard to understate and underestimate the impact of the faith community. Here in Georgia, because it has been in the forefront and because there is cohesive progress and visible progress that's being made, we've found an opening in the faith communities and the churches and the synagogues to come in and bring this awkward and sometimes difficult message in a way that people can practically connect with it. And the impact that it's having is significant as they respond. So it's great, and we feel distinctly blessed to be a part of what's happening in Georgia and the way that it's occurring.
Thank you, Bob. Nonprofits are doing great work, but we never forget, especially in the city of Atlanta, our for-profit partners. Atlanta has always been a city that brought together for-profit companies, nonprofits, religious institutions, and government to solve big problems. And we have a great representative, great partner here in the city from Delta Airlines. They're doing some terrific work, and we have a representative, Allison Osman from Delta. I know they've done some training internally and some other work that's really pushing the envelope in trying to fight against this crime. Allison?
Well, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here as well, and thank you, Attorney General Barr and Ivanka, for taking this on, the administration, and from one bulldog to two other bulldogs. Sorry, Tim, you're totally outnumbered today. Just, it is to have Governor Kemp and Marty make this a priority for our state is unreal. And it's been an honor to be able to sit on the Grace Commission with Marty and many around this room to see what Georgia can do, right, for our children. And, I think on the corporate side, it is a very dark topic, and not every corporation, right, wants to get involved in it. It can be a little bit, impact to the brand, but we absolutely feel like it is a fight worth fighting for. And if you look at the data, it tells you 71% of survivors said that while they were being recruited, they traveled on an airplane. So we see it with 200 million customers under normal times and 75,000 employees. We can make a difference. So there's hope in it for us. We don't see, trafficking as a dark topic, because we see we can do something about it. And it's an honor to be able to share really what the Delta team has done. We've been in the space for 10 years. So we were the first airline to sign the ECPAT Code of Conduct to end child pornography, prostitution, and trafficking. Street Grace, when you talk about the importance of partners, we were talking about that earlier. We have been partnering with Street Grace for 10 years in the fight, trying to figure out what more can Delta do, educate the Delta team on trafficking. And a few years ago, our CEO, Ed Bastian, came to me and said, we've got to get closer to the survivor. How do we get closer to the victim? And really, really important. We've all mentioned it. I know our state employees through the Grace Commission are all now trained, but we have trained 95% of our 75,000 employees. So it's obviously important for our flight crews to know the signs of trafficking, but it's important for everybody because we're all over the world. We live all over the world. We're everywhere around the world. And just a really important outcome out of that, just a great example of what it means. We had two of our mechanics that had taken the training They were together working on a project and were at a fast food restaurant, and they both looked at each other, reflecting on the table next to them, and they immediately said, "Do you see the signs that I see? Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And sure enough, they walked, the group left. There were 3 young girls with 2 men. They walked out, they got the tag of the car, and this was a stolen car and a trafficking event. So it's in our communities all around us, and we can all do something. So training's been really, really important on the Delta front. We talked about raising awareness on the legislative front. Every lobby day, we have lobby day in the state of Georgia, and we amass 150 employees to go to the state capitol to lobby against any anti-trafficking bills. Fortunately, we also do fly-ins to Washington because we send our employees up there to talk to our congressmen and women about it. All of that's important. When you think about all the anti-trafficking bills, both state and national, 75,000 employees living, all over the U.S., anytime there's a bill that Delta can get behind to support anti-trafficking efforts, we notify our teams in that state. On the volunteer front, we have volunteer opportunities all around the U.S. that our Delta team can go and donate and help out. And I think on the customer front, 200 million customers flying everywhere. How do we raise awareness there? We produced an in-flight video that depicts a young boy in a trafficking situation. We had to be careful about that because we don't want to scare or intimidate anybody on board the airplane, but our customers can play a part in this as well. They also donate their Sky Miles, and we've given 100 flights to survivors so that they can get back to safety or go to a state to close out their legal battles. And then I would just close with just the importance of partners. I've talked about 2. I think relative to Dave McCleary and Rotary, we've hosted CEO roundtables with all of our global corporations here in Georgia. Our Georgia Pacific was there. Christian Fisher, he's the CEO. He walked out the next day and got anti-trafficking efforts up and going in Georgia Pacific. We learned from each other. Rotary's been an incredible partner. Our airline partners, trading opportunities and best practices with our airline partners as well. And then the very last one I would say really gets to closest to the victim, which is restoration. And Ivanka, you mentioned, Wellspring Living. We are offering apprenticeships through Wellspring Living for survivors at Delta, and we are on our 7th, apprenticeship. And one in particular, her name is Jessica, and she, Ivanka, thank you, and President Trump for inviting her to the White House. Just to have her on the campus, at Delta, and the opportunity for her to get development, to get work experience, build her resume. But I have stayed in touch with Jessica. I just met with her 2 weeks ago. And the courage and determination it takes her every single day. She lost her complete childhood due to trafficking. And what she goes through every day to get up and get going again for her 3 children that she just got back is an inspiration to all of us. So I just challenge all of us, it's just to get on board, no pun intended with Delta, but let's get on board with all the resources we have around the room to go help more Jessicas, because it is absolutely worth fighting for. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison. The one unfortunate aspect, and I think the Attorney General brought this up, is there are so many cases that the federal government sometimes can't handle all of it. And that's why we need great partners like Attorney General Chris Carr, who's been very forward-thinking in this area with devoting his resources to combat human trafficking. Chris?
Thank you very much, BJ. I appreciate it. And Attorney General Barr, it is wonderful to have you in Georgia, and it's an honor to get as confused as people do with my name and your name as often as we do. Ivanka, welcome back. So good to see you. Thank you both for your passion. Thank you for continuing to focus on Georgia. And I want to say first, thank you for the grants, both the housing grants and the $100 million.
being a member of the First Lady's Grace Commission, we talk about housing and the importance of housing and how there is not enough housing, which means safety, and it means security, and it means wraparound services. So thank you both very, very much for that, because that's going to make a big difference. I also would like to just say thank you for making the announcement here in Georgia. You've heard some common themes, and I will tell you, it is the way we have focused on human trafficking in Georgia is first of its kind, and it is a leader. And I will tell you, there's no governor and first lady that do more than the Kemps have. But if you look around, and that also is GBI Director Vic Reynolds, what he has done focusing on gang activity and human trafficking is unbelievable. But when you start looking around this room and you hear about the partnership, you got Dave McCleary with Rotary. Rotary's in what, 150 countries around the world, 160? I mean, you got somebody all around the world. You've got Bob Rogers and Street Grace around the country, and all the work that they're doing on training and awareness. The private sector, you got Eyes in the Sky and Delta, great corporate partner, UPS. But you've got an Attorney General Barr, you've got the 3 best U.S. attorneys in the country here. I mean that. But what they do to focus and what the marshals have done, I'll talk about Operation Not Forgotten here in just a second, the FBI, the GBI, all the training that we have. You know, folks will say, well, what's the worst state or the worst city for human trafficking? It's hard to get data. But I know who's the #1 state in the nation to eradicate human trafficking, and that's Georgia. And when you look at what the public sector, the private sector, the federal partners, and the state and the local partners, and the marshal mentioned some of our local law enforcement, it's unbelievable. So you've got training and you've got awareness and you've got that expertise that we all have and we've all worked on to make sure that we are helping those survivors. And that's important. We got to get over the stigma of being afraid that we're going to say something, but we're going to be wrong. Well, it'd be far better to be wrong than to have one other child abused. So continuing to train and continue to go forward. And rehabilitation and what Wellspring does, what Children's Healthcare of Atlanta does is unreal. But then you also got to prosecute. And you've got to prosecute those that are buying and selling children for sex. And thanks to the support of the governor and the first lady and our legislature, we now have a first of its kind in Georgia human trafficking prosecutions unit that works with all of these partners. And so we have 6 folks that are working each and every day to make sure that we are prosecuting those that are buying and selling children for sex. We've had 5 indictments. We just started last September being up and running fully. 5 indictments. We've had 5 arrests as a result of Operation Not Forgotten. We're working all around the state right now, and that's critically important. But let me just point out Operation Not Forgotten. And Ivanka, you made the point. That's 39 children whose lives will forever be different as a result of these partnerships. And it was important from our office's perspective to be able to work with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office and the GBI on the front end to make sure that those prosecutions are done the right way. And I'll finish by saying what the director actually said, Director Washington said at the end of that, which is, again, it's a great partnership. And Tim, it goes back to what you were saying about you got to just keep going. Well, he said, look, this is a great operation. 39 children, let's make sure that's 10 times as many next time. And that's what's got to drive us and motivate us. And when you see what's going on in this room, and we, again, I've said this before, I'll say it again, when presidents make issues, it matters. And when governors and first ladies make issues, it matters. And that's what you see in the room, and that's what you see from Georgia. So again, I appreciate y'all being here to make this announcement.
Thank you, Chris. This is about children. Sometimes when they're trafficked, we have to focus a lot about healing children, and we're very lucky to have Children's Healthcare of Atlanta here. If you know anything about healing children, it's that institution. I'm so glad to have Dr. Jordan Greenbaum here to represent the institution, and they're doing some great things in this space. Would you mind sharing some of those efforts with us?
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Jordan Greenbaum. I'm a physician at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. My background is in child protection, child abuse issues, but for the last many years I've been focusing on human trafficking of adults and children, labor and sex trafficking. At Children's, we set up an institute on healthcare and human trafficking to address some of these challenges. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for the healthcare sector to play a role in combating trafficking. If you look at several studies, many trafficked persons in labor and sex trafficking are brought for medical attention at some point during their period of exploitation or right around that time. So healthcare and behavioral health providers are in a very good position to be able to recognize people at risk for trafficking and offer services, kind of like a liaison between victim and services. The problem is that healthcare providers, behavioral health providers, don't have that training. We don't know how to recognize it. We don't know how to respond. We don't know how to do that in a way that's not going to traumatize the patients. And so it's a lost opportunity. So at the Institute, we've tried to meet this challenge in two ways. One is to conduct training of all healthcare professionals, including doctors and nurses and advanced practitioners, but also psychologists, counselors, hospital social workers, school counselors, school nurses, everybody, public health workers, who might encounter an adult or a child trafficked person. And we make our training very practical. It's not just, this is what human trafficking is. It's, this is what you say. This is how you open the conversation. This is how you screen. This is what you say afterwards. If they want to do this, then you respond in this way. Because I think that unless we can really get in the trenches and say, this is exactly what you need to do, we're not going to get any sustainable change in healthcare practice. People want to help, but they also need the skills and the confidence to do that. So the training really focuses on that, and we provide in-person trainings at hospitals around the country, as well as speaking at national conferences and webinars and online modules. The other way that we're tackling it is to design and validate screening tools. It's one thing to offer services for a trafficked person, but you have to know of all those thousands of patients coming in through the doors and going out again, which ones are at risk. It's hard to tell. They're not going, most trafficked persons are not going to self-disclose just spontaneously. So you have to know which ones are to be worried about. So screening tools can be very helpful, but there are not many that are designed for the healthcare setting. There are plenty out there for adults and children, labor and sex trafficking, but most of them you cannot apply to a very busy healthcare setting where people are moving through, you don't have much time, and so you need something short, very efficient, that can be easily incorporated. So what we've done is we created a research-based, clinically validated tool that's 6 questions, and it screens for adolescent sex trafficking. And we've incorporated that and validated it in emergency departments, child advocacy centers, and teen clinics around the country. So that works very well. But that's only one population, adolescents with one type of trafficking, sex trafficking. So we've got this enormous gap. So the Institute now has just started 2 new projects. One is to create a working group of national specialists to design and validate a tool that can be used for detecting labor trafficking among adolescents, with the idea that we would merge the 2 trafficking tools. And then the other group is the same type of thing, getting national experts together to design and validate a tool to detect labor and sex trafficking among the very young, less than 10 years of age. There is no screen for that. There's none. So it's a huge area of gap that we need to find out as much as we can about it and design a tool that can help us identify children at risk. So basically, just to summarize, I think the healthcare sector can be very effective, but right now we're not being very effective because we don't have the knowledge, the skills, and the tools that we need to do so. And until we can get there, we're going to be missing opportunities to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Greenbaum. As I said before, Dave McClary, who represents the Rotary. Rotary is an international organization that has been in front lines raising awareness to battle human trafficking. And I'm glad to have Dave here in the Atlanta area, frankly, to be a great resource, to be able to tap and when the law enforcement needs it. I know they're continuing to work hard to eradicate this evil. So could you tell us a little bit about the latest actions by the Rotary?
Well, thanks, BJ. Thanks for having me. What an unbelievable group of people here today. And Attorney General Barr and Ivanka, thank you so much for your leadership. I can tell you from working on this for a long time, no administration has dedicated this much time and effort into eradicating human trafficking. It's very much appreciated here. And to Governor Kemp and First Lady, the work you all doing is just incredible. The amazing work that Georgia's doing with Chris Carr and Vic Reynolds is just unbelievable. And just one story about Operation Not Forgotten. Not only do they coordinate to make the arrest, but they work with Wellspring Living so that each one of the girls placed. And then we have companies like Delta, so that once they've come out of therapy, they got a place to go. There's no other state, I don't think, that does that, and this could be a model for the rest of the country, so I appreciate that. And a quick story that Tim will appreciate. In 2012, I was a volunteer, Louis Giglio Passion Conference. I learned about trafficking. And during that conference, I thought, why does it happen in my neighborhood? And I met a girl named Melissa, who was from my hometown of Roswell, Georgia, was trafficked. Had her speak at my Rotary Club when I was president. It turns out that she used to babysit one of our members' kids when she was 12. Then it wasn't somebody else's problem. So Rotary is a network of business leaders, law enforcement, educators, where we meet every week at 34,000 clubs in 200 countries. We have hundreds of thousands here in Georgia. So whenever there's an issue that comes forward, we've got the resources within that. And part of the thing that we focused on recently is engages in the private sector, because we think that's hugely important. And so working with Delta is an amazing model example, because they've been doing it for so long. But we had a summit about a year and a half ago here in Atlanta. We had 60 global corporations, but Delta, Coke, UPS, Ronstadt, International Hotel Group all gave case studies. Well, from that, like Allison mentioned, then Georgia Pacific began to train all their employees and work on the issue. Synovus Bank was there, began to look at money laundering issues. We did one with Jones Day in Washington, D.C. We had all the government agencies, including the Department of Justice, there for that. But we also had business leaders, and we had Walmart giving some of the examples they did. And so Chevron was there. So we introduced him to the vice president of Walmart, and he ended up working with them to mentor them on how to address the issue of human trafficking. And that's the area that Rotary has been really helpful with. And you'll appreciate this, Ivanka, when you were here, I was on the round table at Wellspring Living. Well, I invited a really good friend of mine, Laura Ellsworth, who's a global partner of pro bono work for Jones Day. And so afterwards, she said, well, how can I help? And so we started talking. She introduced me to the senior partner here in Atlanta, Jennifer. And so they began to write a playbook on what lawyers can do and law firms can do to address this issue. Because once these girls get out of the situation, they need legal advice, and these NGOs have to go out and find them. But now Jones Day is creating because of that event, and she was so inspired, Jones Day is creating a playbook that we can now use for attorneys all over the United States. And what Rotary is going to do is reach out to our clubs, because we have a network, we have actually 62 members on our action group. 62 countries on our action group now. Reach out to those clubs and those members and tell them about this legal playbook. But anytime there's a great model like Wellspring Living, we've partnered with their Women's Academy and give the women sustainable jobs once they come out, and introduce them to the business. But just thank you for your leadership from the state level. And by the way, in 2011, we were an F. Today, Shared Hope grades us the second best in the nation at 96 because of the work that Georgia's done. So thank you at the state level, thank you at the federal level, and look forward to seeing how Rotary can partner with you and help. Thank you.
Last but not least, Vic Reynolds was the director of the GBI. Vic has a very interesting perspective because he has a varied background. Not only was he a police officer in the street level, he was also elected district attorney before being appointed by Governor Kemp to the current post. GBI has some exciting things going on right now because of the governor and the first lady's priority in this area. Vic, could you tell us what the GBI is doing?
Certainly, BJ. Thank you. And Attorney General Barr, I will tell you that I've been everything in the courtroom except a defendant, and I want to keep it that way. Thank you, BJ, and Attorney General Barr and Senior Advisor Trump. Thank you for being here, and welcome to Georgia, Governor and First Lady as well. I hope if you haven't taken anything away from today, I hope you've taken the fact that in this state we're willing to be a partner. I think that, at least from my perspective as being the director of the GBI, is what separates us from a lot of states. What we've learned over the years, and this isn't anything new to most of the folks in this room, but what we've learned is that bad guys don't stop being bad guys at a city boundary or a county line or even a state line. They extend that past. And so we can't operate in these separate silos. We have to work together, and we've been able to do that. The GBI, we're honored to be part of the FBI's match unit. And Special Agent in Charge Hacker and I, Chris, and I are friends, and we work together. Marshall Yeager, we're honored to be part of the Not Forgotten program as well, and we work with them. Attorney General Carr and I are friends, and we're so honored to work with his new unit there. But at the GBI, we've decided to actually take it a step further. We've just developed a brand new unit within the Bureau, the Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit. We refer to it as the HEAT unit. And that unit has been charged with the mission of curbing sexual commercial trafficking in this state, curbing labor trafficking as well, and also rescuing adult victims. We have a standalone unit already working with our child victims, but we wanted to take that a step further and make sure we were doing what we needed to do to make sure the adult trafficking victims are rescued as well and given the services they need. Again, I'll echo what's already been said around this table. The amazing support that we get as a state agency from the governor and first lady is what allows us to do this. And I will tell you from a practical perspective, the grant money you're talking about has funded 2 of the agents in that heat unit. So I want you to know it's being put to good use, and 2 of the agents that work those cases day in and day out are there because of that grant money. The last thing I would leave you with is something that I told the agents that we handpicked to go in that heat unit when we made that decision, is that although our mission for the GBI remains the same, our vision remains the same, and these are tough, complex cases that you're working, the message is clear in this state. We're not going to allow you to sell another human being in Georgia. And if you do, we will find you, we will investigate you, arrest you, prosecute you, and we will insist on you being sent to prison. And so that's the mission, the message that the GBI wants to make sure we send with our federal partners, our private partners, and our state partners. So again, thank you for this time, and thank you for sharing the message you have with us here in Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We have a few minutes. Most of us know each other here, we work very well, but I wanted to open it up for questions for our special guests, Senior Advisor Trump, Attorney General Barr, and also Mr. Tebow. If you have any questions for us that you would like, you heard a lot of good things. If you don't, it's okay. We can move on to the next stage, but I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have any. Mike?
I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join with us this afternoon. This event is important not only because it helps spread the word about the problem, but it also shows what people can do if they're willing to pitch in, join the team, and fight hard. And Georgia has become a model in terms of how to approach this problem. And Ivanka and I will take this around the country and see if we can have a lot of states adopt a lot of the positive things that have been done here in Georgia. You know, one of the things is, though, that when I pointed to the Not Forgotten operation, it wasn't because it was exceptional necessarily, although it was exceptional, but it was because that kind of work is being done across the board. It's being done by all levels. It doesn't get the attention that it really deserves. But, you know, Ivanka was in Virginia, and there was a huge operation up there, and all the different federal agencies and state agencies are doing this work day in and day out. And the good thing about Not Forgotten was it did catch attention. But I think we all know, being here, that it's typical of a lot of the work that's being done. You know, the FBI, you know, we know that with taking down Backpage, that's been spreading around other areas of the internet and so forth. And, you know, the FBI just does a fantastic job with its work, you know, its cyber work and on the dark net. It's a major area of investment for the Department of Justice, is to build up our capabilities in that area. So from that very highfalutin kind of work down to the street and busting indoors, it's a 24/7 task. So again, I thank you all for helping us call attention to this issue, and also to the solutions that are underway. And I don't know if Ivanka might have some final words.
Thank you, Attorney General, and thank you to all the participants here today. I learned a lot, and we've learned a lot through yet another really productive visit here in Georgia. based on the models of what everyone around this table is doing and how we can scale that up across the country. But I think as Vic said so eloquently, we're not going to allow another victim in this nation if we can all prevent it. So the president is committed to preventing it and committed to combating this crime, committed to bringing justice to the victims, to their families, and committed to holistic healing that is so necessary for the brave survivors, true, as they say at Wellspring Living, warrior men and women. So we thank you all for being on the forefront of this fight. And as we ramp this up, hopefully there will be much less work for everyone to do as we stamp out this horrible crime. So thank you. And again, to our amazing host, thank you, Governor. Thank you, First Lady, for having us here. And thank you, Attorney General Carr. And thank you so much for hosting us, U.S. Attorney. Thanks.
Thank you. To close this out, I want to thank all of you for joining us, and particularly Senior Advisor Trump and Attorney General Barr for coming to visit with us. We're going to continue our fight, and I think we transition to maybe a group photo, and then that'll be the end of the day. Thank you so much, everyone.